I think the general vibe for me is I'm confused as fuck. Yeah, anyways, I had snot bubbles coming out of my nose. Hello, it is summertime, which means that it's the perfect time to start reading some romance books. Specifically, some Emily Henry romance books. I have yet to read any of her books, so it's my mission to read her most popular books this summer, see what I think of them, and to start off with, I have Book Lovers. I'm gonna get started on this. I'm so excited. I'm 6 pages in and I'm already freaking loving her writing. I wasn't gonna annotate this book, but I think I'm gonna have to because listen to this. That's the thing about women. There's no good way to be one. Wear your emotions on your sleeve and you're hysterical. Keep them tucked away where your boyfriend doesn't have to tend to them and you're a heartless bitch. 6 pages in, I'm starting to get the hype. I'm now 60 pages into Book Lovers, and I just want to say Emily Henry's comedic timing is so good. She's really exploring the things that our main character Nora is going through, especially with her grief and her relationship with her sister. She's exploring it quite deeply. She doesn't let it go on for too long that it drags down the entire romantic comedy vibe of the book. She breaks them up with these like funny, ridiculous little things. I love the ridiculous aspects of rom-coms where some of the dumbest things happen and the way that the whole romance unfolds is a little bit ridiculous, but at the same time it still has depth. As much as I love a rom-com that's like a no-brainer brain candy type of book, this type of rom-com is definitely my favorite, and I'm so mad at myself for waiting so long to read this book because I am absolutely having a great time reading this. I've annotated almost every single page. I was not expecting that at all, and I get the banter now. I know a lot of people say that Emily Henry writes amazing banter. We've barely had any interactions between Nora and Charlie, but the moments when they were talking to each other, it's just top-notch banter. It is so good. I love witty characters. I just reread a conversation between the two of them and I'm obsessed. And I also love a lot of the rom-com references in this book. I'm not the biggest fan of metafiction. I typically don't really like it whenever books reference other books too much, or like reading, or like anything that has to do with books. And I think it's because a lot of the times they're just not doing it right. But she's doing it so well. The entire prologue of this thing is basically Nora being her cynical self, talking about all of the tropes, and she's kind of like poking fun of the rom-com genre about how ridiculous it tends to be and how formulaic it is, but at the same time we can't help but eat it up. And she's kind of like juxtaposing that with her own life because she feels like the exact opposite of the main characters of those rom-com books, which I think is very relatable for most of us. But now she's kind of having her own little moment. I'm really loving the way that this book is structured right now, and her writing is making me really happy. About 2/3 of the way through chapter 22. This book is very meta. Obviously it's called Book Lovers, right? So there's a lot of discussions about books and about people who love books, and I was expecting it to be meta in that way, but the story in it of itself, there's a lot of like really subtle parallels and subtle references within a story that they're both working on. Definitely an ode to things that are happening in this book book, and it gives you an insight of what Emily Henry was thinking and exactly why she's making the choices that she's making for these characters. So in a way, it almost feels like Emily Henry is talking directly to us as readers, and it's really interesting how she's doing this because I typically hate meta literature, and Emily Henry is doing such a great job of turning tropes on its head. This book is very anti-trope, right? Like, there are tropes within the book, but it's also poking fun of a lot of the really popular tropes, including small town romances, like city people who are like very into their work, moving to the countryside and then like finding peace or whatever. Charlie and Nora are both very career-oriented people. They're very pragmatic, so they would never do anything like that. And oh my gosh, the way that Emily Henry is building the tension between these two characters is so good. And there's also a lot of discussions about grief in this book that I was not expecting at all. Nora has a lot of things that she needs to process about her mother's death, which happened years and years ago, but since she's always put other people before herself, she's never really truly processed that grief. Technically, it's more of a 4.25, but we're gonna bump it up to a 4.5 because I can't start doing quarter ratings halfway through the year, okay? I obviously really enjoyed it. I really enjoy our main characters, Nora and Libby. No. Nora and Charlie. Libby is Nora's sister. I love that we tackled themes about family and grief and a bunch of other things beyond just the romance. Nora and Charlie just understood each other so well, not only because they're both so pragmatic and because they both have this love for New York City, they both understand what it feels like to need to be in control of things. And I love that there was never a point where one of them was trying to change the other, and I really appreciate the fact that neither one of them felt like they had to loosen up. They did have some moments where they both felt so comfortable with each other that they didn't feel the need to be like fully in control of everything. She definitely still used the tropes, but they're so refreshing. She basically took those tropes, she took the archetypes, turned them on their heads, and she was like, can't fully get rid of tropes, you can't fully get rid of the archetypes, but I'm gonna put a little twist on them. And I really like the way that she did that. Usually whenever it comes to romances, the third act conflict can make or break it for me. I honestly thought for a minute there that Nora was gonna succumb to her worst nightmare for a second, but I'm so glad that I'm wrong. I really enjoyed the way that this book ended. I will say that I was a little bit annoyed with the way Nora reacted with the whole sister thing. Your sister is literally a grown adult. I understand that, you know, you're an older sister and you feel responsible for her, but in so many ways it never really made sense to me why she couldn't trust her sister to be able to take care of herself when her sister literally has 2 children and is pregnant with her 3rd one. Give your sister some credit with all of that out of the way. People would meet on vacation. I'm about like 60% of the way through this book right now, and the reason why I haven't picked up the camera to tell you about my thoughts on it is not because I'm obsessed with it and I just can't put it down, but because I kept on reading, waiting for something more exciting to happen. I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on a more positive note. Not that I'm hating this book, I'm really not. It's just from the very beginning, it didn't grip me as quickly as book lovers did, which is totally fine. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give it a little bit. I'm gonna give myself some time to settle into this story. I obviously just needed some time to adjust. And I just kept on reading and reading until I got to chapter 25. I don't think the moment that I'm waiting for is gonna come, but that's okay. So far, this book has just been kind of uneventful. This has a dual timeline going on. We're going back and forth between the present and the past. I'm kind of almost dreading the past chapters because I just want to know what's happening right now. The main thing that's keeping me interested in this book is that I want to know what the fuck happened between the two of them. This follows these two best friends who go on vacation once a year until during one of these vacations something happened and they just kind of stopped talking. And that something is like the main mystery here. Mystery, I feel like I know what it is because what I'm thinking happened is so obvious that if what I'm thinking is what actually happened, I'm gonna be so annoyed. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. That mystery is the main thing that's keeping me wanting to read, keeping me wanting to turn the pages. The romance is kind of like secondary to this incident for me right now. I mean, I do like their dynamic. The past timelines, like we're going through all of the other vacations that they've been on. It's obviously priming this relationship, right? Like we need this backstory in order for us to get a sense of their actual relationship. But I prefer their interactions in the present timeline where things are a little bit off. I almost wish that we have Alex's point of view. It's feeling very one-sided. I'm 60% of the way through the book and I'm still not really sure if Charlie even likes her romantically. Like, yes, there is a little bit of a spark, but I have more doubt. I'm not feeling the vibe from him. The vibe that I'm getting from him is almost like, yeah, I think you're cute, but you know, it's feeling almost unrequited, but not in a fun way. It's just kind of depressing. I'm not hating it, okay? I'm just having a hard time accepting that these two books are written by the same author. I'm a little bit sad right now just because I started off on such a high. What I will say though is that even though there are parts that I'm not particularly enjoying, Emily Henry's writing is still very, very readable. So it's never really dragging, even if I'm not having the best time. You know what I mean? Remember what I said about me being confused if Alex actually liked her? And also the part where I said that I didn't really like the past chapters? I'm eating my words because immediately right now I'm in the middle of a chapter where it's a past chapter. I'm no longer confused. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying a past chapter for the first time in 248 pages. So this book might turn around. I feel like I'm delusional. It's not even that late. Oh, it's 2:02. I am almost done with People We Meet on Vacation. I literally have like that much left. I'm definitely gonna finish this today, but I want to talk about some of my feelings a little bit because last night I thought things were getting better, but right after that chapter, it started going downhill again. I'm feeling so lukewarm about this book. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint what I'm not loving. I like Poppy and Alex together. I like their dynamic. I like the scenes they have together, but at the same time, the way that they got together happened so abruptly, even though it's literally been in the making for decades. Not decades. It's been in the making for over a decade. The moment was a little lost on me. I didn't love the way that that played out. It shouldn't have happened when it happened. I'm a little sad about this one, but you know what? I'm glad I didn't start with this book. I'm glad that I started strong with Book Lovers, so at least I know what she's capable of because this missed the romance department and it missed the comedy department. The sense of humor that I really loved in Book Lovers was not really here. There were some moments that were kind of funny, but it just wasn't the same. And the romance is kind of all over the place. I think the general vibe for me is I'm confused as fuck. I'm gonna finish it so I can give you guys my final thoughts. Found out what happened in Croatia and it's exactly what I thought it was. If you're gonna try to make something like mysterious, you know what I mean? Like if you're not gonna tell me what the fuck happened in the beginning of the book and you're gonna play off the mystery of it all, at least make it not so obvious, because what happened in this mysterious Croatia trip is literally the most obvious thing. I'm so mad. I knew that that's what it was throughout the whole book. I knew it literally from the second that she said something happened. I hate that she made us work 33 chapters. Anyways, I'm almost done. think I'm gonna give this book a 3 stars. I really didn't hate it. I did enjoy their dynamic. I was rooting for them and I liked how it ended. It's just a huge chunk of this book was so unmemorable to me, and I feel like that was a lot of work for little reward. I mean, 3 stars is not a bad rating at all. I don't want you to think that it's like a horrible book. I don't think it's horrible. It's just not my fave. You know, I guess you win some, you lose some. I am glad that I read it. I still have a pretty positive opinion of Emily Henry. I have 2 more books that I'm reading for this video, so she has 2 more chances to win me back over. We have a hit and a miss, so it's 1 for 1. Also, by the way, I just want to clarify that I am reading other books in between, just kind of like as a palate cleanser, just so I can go into a new Emily Henry book with a bit more of a fresher perspective. But the next book that I have here is obviously Beach Read. What did she write this? This is 2020, so I'm kind of working backwards. I started with Book Lovers, which she wrote in 2022. This is 2021 and this is 2020. There might have been a reference to Augustus Everett in this. I swear I remember reading the name Augustus Everett. Like, I think there was a point where Alex was reading a book written by Augustus, because I believe these 2 people are both authors. I swear I remember that, but could be wrong. Look at how beautiful. They're so pretty together. Okay. I knew that the guy's name was Augustus, but I had no idea that the woman's name is January. August and January. Winter and summer. I don't know if I'm gonna hate that name combo or if I'm gonna love it. Hopefully this one's a little bit better. I've actually heard a lot of people say that this is their favorite. I'm very hopeful. Also, I love the bright colors because I actually get to use my bright colored stickies, which I never use them anymore. I like to match. I know. I didn't even really annotate people we made on vacation. I used 1 tab. Okay, so I have read up to page... What? I've read it to page 82, chapter 9 of Beach Read. What the hell? It doesn't feel like I've been reading. It's 1 a.m. I've completely lost track of time. I sat here telling myself I'm gonna read for like 15 minutes just to get this book started, and then I'm gonna go take a shower, but apparently I've been reading for an hour and I've read 82 pages. Here's the thing about Emily Henry's books. They're so easy to read and they're so easy to keep on reading. I completely lost track of time. That rarely ever happens to me, even when I'm like really enjoying a book. Her writing is just so easy to fall into. Already I'm loving this book so much more than People We Meet on Vacation. I'm loving Gus and January. I'm loving their dynamic so far. It's so cute. They were academic rivals back in college and now they're both authors. So Gus writes very serious literary fiction type works and January is primarily a romance author. They just made a deal that they're gonna switch genres. They're gonna write in each other's genres. And then they're gonna take each other out on research. But we both know research is basically just code word for dates. So excited. What an incredible 180 from this book. This... Oh, the vibes. This is making me really happy right now. I was so sad with this book, but I think Emily Henry is back in my good graces. I really love January and Gus. I think this book so far has the magic that Book Lovers did. I feel like this is gearing up to be exactly like my perfect rom-com. So far in all of the books that I've read of hers, she's tackled grief, at least in some way. More so in Book Lovers than in People We Meet on Vacation, but she touched on grief in People We Meet on Vacation as well. And she's also touching on grief in this one, and I'm really interested to see how she's gonna tackle that in this, because this book that she's writing right now is definitely gonna be a way for her to deal with this grief. But the grief that she's gonna be dealing with is very multi-layered, because not only is she grieving a person, she's grieving a life that she thought she had. So far, that's been so interesting to read, and the research has just started, and so far that's also really interesting. I can now see how this research is not only going to be a way for them to bond, obviously, it's also going to be tied into all of the themes, just judging by this first research trip that they took. She's building quite a multi-layered story within this rom-com, and I am so excited about that. I just don't read a lot of rom-coms with this much depth, but still feel like a rom-com. You know what I mean? I don't know, this just hits for me because I'm the type of person that I need some sort of comedic breaks within the difficult topics. You know what I mean? Because that's how I deal. I use humor to cope. I use humor to process things. So far, I think I like this dynamic more than I like Charlie and Nora, which is saying a lot because I really, really like Charlie and Nora. And I'm not even that far into this book, but I love them together. I love Gus. I don't know why. I find Gus so freaking charming. I thought he was gonna be like this super broody, very grumpy type of guy since he writes very serious literary fiction type stuff. I have made some progress, about 60% of the way through right now. I'm on chapter 19. We found out this like bombshell news about Augustus that I truly did not expect it just because of how he is. So it was quite a shock to me when I found out, which is kind of nice. And I'm just loving the way that their relationship is developing. Like, yes, there's a lot of this initial physical attraction between the two of them, but there's also just this beautiful emotional connection that they have. I love this dynamic of them being neighbors. And the whole like kitchen scene, I love that. Those are like some of my favorite scenes, is when they're just not even really talking. They're like holding up signs for each other to read. Like, I just find that so cute. And I'm also really loving the role that the books that they're writing is playing in the development of their relationship. I just want to see if the whole story ends up beating Book Lovers for me. I honestly thought that I started with the best Emily Henry book. I didn't know that it's possible for any of her other books to top that. I mean, I guess it is possible because one of these books could be a 5 stars, right? So anyways, I'm gonna take off this makeup. I am feeling a little bit crazy. Whenever I put on makeup, the best part, the end of the day, that is the best part. So much more comfortable. Hello everybody, I'm back. I don't know why I said it like that, like I've been gone. I have finished Beach Read and I loved it. I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars, but this is like a proper 4.5 because remember how I gave Book Lovers a 4.5, but I said it's like technically a 4.25 if I was doing quarter stars. This is like 4.5 stars. I really, really, really loved Gus and what is her name? January. Oh my gosh. Literally it's August and January. How can I forget that? But yeah, I love them so much. I love their dynamic and I love, again, Emily Henry is so good at taking tropes and taking archetypes, exploring them deeper, turning them on their heads and presenting them to us in ways that we really haven't seen before. I love that she goes deep into these tropes instead of just like giving us the trope. I thought this was totally gonna be like Grumpy Sunshine because of the whole literary fiction grump versus like happy-go-lucky, quirky romance author, but it was so not that. The characters had so much depth, and although they are technically grumpy slash sunshine, they're not just grumpy and just sunshine. There's so many other facets to their personality. Gus is a little bit goofy, even if he is grumpy, and he has a more cynical view. Not cynical, that's not the word. Like, he's a bit more of a stoic, you know what I mean? Like, he's a bit more of a realist than anything else. Like, he's not very optimistic, but he's gone through some stuff that has made him a little bit weary of happily ever afters. I wish that I would have noticed the happily ever after theme from the very beginning, but I didn't really notice it until about halfway through the book. I cannot wait to reread this. I feel like this is a book that I'm going to appreciate even more upon a reread. I loved how she explores how happily ever after looks different for everybody else, and it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, as a couple you're never gonna go through any hardships, that you're never gonna go through some dark paths. Happily ever after is so much more than that. Like, of course you're gonna go through some ups and downs, of course hard times are gonna come, of course bad things are gonna happen, unfortunately, but the important part is that you're gonna go through it together. A lot of the times the happily ever after is tied up in a pretty little bow. It makes you feel like nothing is ever gonna go wrong ever again, and that's what life is supposed to be. That's what you're supposed to aim for. When in reality, obviously life is not like that. I think that's what's so great about Emily Henry, is that she writes very compelling romances and very, I don't want to say realistic, because that's not the right, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's very grounded on reality. She explores romance in that setting where, you know, like some really crazy, unrealistic things happen, and she explores the deeper aspects of it in ways that can actually be applied in real life. You know what I'm saying? I hope I'm making sense. The ending of this book was so good. I think this is one of the best romance endings I've read in a while, even though there's a lot of like really heavily emotional things that happen towards the end because of things that January was going through and, you know, things that she was processing. It gave me a very warm, fuzzy feeling. It was very hopeful, even though it wasn't all sunshines, rainbows, and butterflies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how she did that, but she did it so well. And even like the freaking reader's guides. In all of her books, there's these reader's guide. She wrote like a whole thing on how she basically came up with a story. She talks about how this book is, for her at least, it's very much about writer's block. And I love how she, like, what she wrote here at the very end. I'm gonna read it to you guys really quickly. Sometimes we lose the ability to create simply because we're tired. We need to rest and recover. But other times we can't move forward because there are hard questions we have to ask first. Hurdles in our path we first have to jump, or walls that need breaking down. Interrogations demanding to be made. And when we're brave enough to do so, we can make something beautiful, something we didn't know we were capable of before we began. So yes, sometimes making art is a horror story, but other times you fall head over heels in love. Either way, you'll probably laugh. That explains so much about how she writes, especially the part where she says either way you'll probably laugh, because again, she writes rom-coms where I think her comedic timing, with the exception of People We Meet on Vacation, we're not going to talk about this, but I think in this one, in Book Lovers, what's really great about it is that she was able to break up the tension and the really sad, melancholic moments with these perfectly timed comedic moments. This was so good. I had such a good time reading this book. Emily Henry has redeemed herself on this one. I'm sorry, People We Meet on Vacation. I'm sorry I doubted her when I read this. It could be because both of these books deal with stories. This one deals with book lovers, so it deals with two people who have such a love for books, love for literature, and love for stories in general. And this deals with authors who also loves books and stories, and I think she's so good at talking about those topics. Obviously, as an author, there's a saying, write what you know, so I'm not surprised that she's really good at handling those topics. Even in this one, what's her name? Poppy is an author, and Alex is, I think he's an English teacher. They're both very literary, they're both very much book people, but that's not a big part of the story. I don't know if she just did these two very well because she's so good at writing about stories and about books, or maybe this was just a fluke, which is why I'm very excited to pick up the last book for this video. I have started Happy Place. I am currently on chapter 4, I believe, or chapter 3 or 4, I don't know, but I just started it, so not that far into it, and I don't know if any of the characters are going to be in the literary world. It's about two ex-fiancés who are kind of fake dating because it's going to be their final summer with their big group of friends at this summer beach house that they go to. They kind of don't want to ruin the vibe for everybody, so they didn't want to tell people that they've broken up, so they're fake dating throughout all of this. There's also the big friend group, so there's going to be a bigger cast of characters in this one, and so far the main female character is a surgery resident, which I love that as somebody who is in medical school, as somebody who actually wants to specialize in surgery. That'll be interesting to see how that's portrayed, although I don't know if it's gonna be a big part of the story, but it'll be interesting because they've already talked about how she's like so busy and how a lot of that has like affected her relationships. I don't know what the guy does. I don't know if I've gotten to that part. I don't know if he's gonna be in like the book world or not, and I don't know if any of the other characters are gonna be in the book world. It'll be interesting to read a book where possibly the two main characters are not authors or editors or in the book world. I don't know how big of a role the theme of stories is gonna be in Happy Place. Again, like I said, what I loved in these two books is how she handled the theme of stories, and that was missing in this, and I didn't love this as much. So I know it's gonna deal with the theme of friendships and platonic relationships, and I love books about friendships. Books about friendships are some of my favorite books. Sometimes I even love them more than actual romances. Although right now she is 2 for 1. She is winning 2 for 1. This one would either tie it and make her like a hit or miss author for me, or it's gonna be great and it's just gonna be that one book that I didn't like that much. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna go. I'm just rambling for no reason. I'm already 70% of the way through Happy Place right now. Emily Henry books are just so quick and so easy to read that I don't even notice how much I've read, especially since I'm reading on my Kindle. So I don't have a physical book that I'm holding and I can't see how much like I physically still have to read. I totally did not notice and I was already 70% of the way through at this point. So I think I'm definitely gonna be finishing this today. I'm absolutely loving the romance in this, which I honestly am a little bit surprised by. I totally thought that I wasn't gonna be obsessed with the romance and that I was gonna be more obsessed with the friendship in this book, but I love the romance. There's a lot of tension between the two of them, especially since they are exes and they've just been playing these games with each other and I've been eating up every second of that. It's just so entertaining. The friendship is also really fun to read about. This is also a dual timeline, which I didn't know going into it, and I was a little bit worried when I figured out that it was going to be dual timeline because People We Meet on Vacation was dual timeline, but she is definitely doing so much better on this one. I think both timelines are developed pretty well and neither one feels unnecessary. Like they both feel relevant to the actual story as opposed to People We Meet on Vacation, which I'm gonna stop talking about that book. Oh, what is going on? My thing is, oh god, now I'm getting a phone call. Holy shit. Apologies for the phone intermission. I forgot what I was talking about, but I think it might have been about the romance. If it's not, I'm just gonna ramble on about the romance. Obviously, there's a huge miscommunication that must have happened that led to their breakup because the way that things are being revealed right now, it seems like neither one of them really wanted to break up with each other. I still don't know why they broke up. I'm hoping that it doesn't ruin the book for me because a lot of the times whenever it comes to second chance romances like this, the reasoning for their breakup in the first place could really make or break it for me. So I'm hoping that it's like nothing ridiculous or anything or nothing completely unforgivable. One of the main themes of this book is friendships, platonic relationships, how they shape you, how they help you get through some really tough times in your life, and how truly important it is to have that great support system and how much of a role your friends truly play in your successes in life. I absolutely loved how we're exploring their friendships here and how the friendship has evolved throughout the years, you know, throughout a lot of the things that they've accomplished and their ups and downs and how it's kind of molded them as people. And I'm also really appreciating that it's not showing this friendship as if it's all rainbows and flowers and butterflies. It's showing that they also have disagreements, that they have arguments with each other. There are times when there's a strain in the friendship, but at the end of the day, they're still friends and they're still there for each other. And sometimes friends have arguments and that's okay. It doesn't mean that it has to be the end of your relationship. Sometimes you have disagreements about things, about how things are done. Feelings can get hurt. That's just how friendships are. That's how all relationships are. It's actually healthy to have some sort of arguments from time to time because at least you're talking about the things that you're not 100% agreeing on. And that's also a thing in the romantic relationship as well, actually. We're seeing that one of the big problems that they have is the fact that they never really argued, which means that there are a lot of things that they probably both really wanted to get off their chest that they never really got out of their chests because they never had that conversation. There's still comedic relief in between the heavier moments and the more emotional moments, so it's not very bogged down by just melancholy and sadness. Even though there is a lot of melancholy and sadness, there's still a lot of good and a lot of fun and a lot of laughters amongst all of the tears, which I have said this so many times throughout this video, I feel like, but I really, really, really love that. And another thing, I've said this before, but she is so good at taking tropes, twisting them, ripping it apart, putting it together a little bit differently, smushing all of these tropes in one big ball, and then sticking it into the book. She doesn't just take a trope and then run with it. She takes a trope and she really goes in on it and be like, you know what? How can we make this more interesting? How can we make this trope different? Because this has the one bit trope, like I said, second chance romance, fake dating, friends to lovers, and a bunch of other things, but she's doing it in a way that it doesn't feel so tropey, even if it is chock full of tropes. Our main character, Harriet, is a neurosurgery resident. She's actually one of my top 5 dream residencies. She's at UCSF neurosurgery residency. She talks about how pretty much all of her adult life was dictated by her desire to become a doctor, somebody who wants to become a neurosurgeon. I felt that so deeply in my soul, especially when she was talking about how, you know, after undergrad and how a lot of her friends were talking about moving to like certain places. They were like trying to make plans because they all want to live together and they all still want to be able to like see each other all the time. One of her thoughts was like, yeah, I would love that, but realistically, I would have to go to the medical school that would accept me, because medical school is extremely selective, and even if you're one of the best students ever, it does not guarantee you a spot anywhere. I'm not gonna get into that. But when she was just talking about that, I'm like, yeah, oh my god, like that just speaks to me. Like, I get it. And one of the problems also with her relationship is that she feels trapped and her partner feels trapped in this situation, because obviously she can't just up and leave her residency because she's still in training. In the context of pursuing medicine as a career, it just really hits a spot in my heart, and it's very, very close to home for me, I guess. But with that being said, this is not an Emily Henry thing, this is a me thing, but I really dislike it whenever characters in STEM make weird scientific or biological metaphors. Ali Hazelwood, the way that she does it, where all of her main characters are in STEM, when she does it, it's not cringy and it doesn't annoy me, because she does it in a way that it's like ridiculous, you know what I mean? But a lot of other authors, whenever they write people in STEM and then they make those kinds of metaphors, they do it in like such a serious way, to the point I'm like, who the fuck thinks like that? I'm sure there are some people who are comforted by like hyper analyzing bodily functions and kind of like justifying their reactions by like connecting it to like an actual biological mechanism. I'm sure there are people who like find comfort in that. I'm not saying that that's not a thing, but it's just the way that it's written every single time, I'm always just like, ugh, you know? It just gives me the ick, especially since there's this one metaphor. It was like the first, it's not even a metaphor, it was just like an analysis, I guess, that she made in the very beginning of the book. I was enjoying it, and then I read that and I was like, oh. And every single time she makes one of these things, I just kind of like cringe a little bit, and it takes me out of the story a little bit. There's this particular reference that she made in the beginning of the book that just, it took me out of the story so badly that I had to like put the book down and just scratch my head for a second, because I'm like, what? Why would you? Why would you say that? It was half right, but it was also half wrong. I would have forgiven that, right? Like, I would have been like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, it's not really that relevant to the story, and I would have forgiven it. But then she repeated it like about halfway through the book, and she only repeated the part that was wrong. I was ready to ignore it. I was ready to let it go, but then you repeat it, and now I'm here talking about it, because why? Yeah, anyways. She doesn't do it as much in like the last half of the book. It definitely happened more in the first half, which I'm very grateful for. It's not gonna affect my rating of the book or anything, because I feel like it's not fair. Like, it's not really that relevant. It's just like an ick that I have. And last thing before I go is, this book also talks about grief. All of the books that I've read from her, there's an underlying theme of grief, even though it's not as heavy in this one as it was in Book Lovers or Beach Read. It's still exploring the nuances of grief and how somebody's grief can affect the people around them and the trajectory of their lives. Obviously, I still need to finish it, because I think Emily Henry is actually really good at ending her books. She always ends them very strong. Even in People We Meet on Vacation, the ending of that was probably the strongest part of the book. Also, I just want to point out, although the friendship is a big part of this story, I thought it would be a bigger part of it, because I've heard so many people say that this book is more of a story about friendship than it is about the romance, and I don't agree with that 100%. We are exploring their relationship through the lens of everybody else around them, and how their relationship is impacted by their other relationships, how their relationship is impacted by their friendship, how their relationship is impacted by their families, how their relationship is impacted by their careers and co-workers even. But it is very much about their relationship. I know I said that I was gonna shut up and just finish the book, but I think I just got the full picture of why they broke up. There were like hints of it, so it wasn't like 100% a secret. It was exactly what I thought it was when they were like hinting at it in the beginning, and the core of why they broke up is basically just a massive miscommunication. I've talked about how much I really dislike the miscommunication trope in books before, and I don't consider this a miscommunication trope. Usually when I say miscommunication trope, it's when authors just throw in a random miscommunication to kind of shake things up and then cause a third act breakup. That's what I mean when I hate the trope, because it feels disingenuous whenever authors do that. It doesn't feel like it's an organic thing. It feels like something that the author threw into the story to cause some drama. But whenever miscommunications like this happen, where it's like in the context of other things where it makes sense why they had a miscommunication, because obviously miscommunications happen in real life, like we're not perfect. I'm very empathetic to both of them. It's easy to like be in this perspective and be like, yeah, I just wish they would have talked about it. But the reality is Win was going through a lot. He was processing his grief. He didn't know how to do it. He didn't know how to ask for help. Harriet did not know how to help. She didn't know how much to push while she was also handling her grief. So both of them were a mess. I don't know how they're going to resolve this. I have faith that Emily Henry is going to solve this in a satisfactory way. There's somebody outside. And then I met you, and I didn't feel so lost or aimless, because even if there was nothing else for me, it felt like loving you was what I was made for. And it didn't matter what anyone thought of me. It didn't matter if I didn't have any other big plans for myself, as long as I got to love you. That's so cute. Emily Henry, what the f are you doing to me? Oh my god. My life. As you guys saw, I finished Happy Place and I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. It's actually been a few hours since I finished it. I had to take a minute to process my emotions, to process my feelings, and also because this book had me sobbing. I'm talking I had snot bubbles coming out of my nose. That's how much I was crying. I don't think I've felt anywhere remotely close to how this book made me feel since I read A Man Called Uva. And if you know me, that book is probably my favorite book of all time. And that book made me sob for months. I'm not exaggerating. Every single time I thought of that book for months, I would start crying. This isn't quite at that level. I'm not like crying over it every 2 minutes, but it's like the closest I've felt to the way that I felt when I read A Man Called Uva. She just ends these books so well. All of the things that Harriet was talking about, that Harriet was going through internally at the very end of this book, like a lot of those discussions hit so close to home. A lot of the things that she went through, a lot of the questions that she had for herself regarding her career, I have gone through that so many times actually. And when she was talking about that, I was like, yes. I have just never related to a character more than I've related to Harriet. This almost felt like a very full circle moment from the very first book that I read, because the women in these two books, they're similar in a lot of ways, but they almost made opposite life choices, if that makes sense. Same thing with the male love interests. With all that being said, I'm very excited and very happy to say that I'm officially a really big Emily Henry fan. I think I was already a fan from Book Lovers, but People We Meet on Vacation kind of threw me off a little bit. But you know what? This was a fluke, a second book slump, if you will. Even though this is not her second book, I know she's written like other books before Book Lovers. In terms of like her romance career, People We Meet on Vacation definitely suffers from the second book syndrome. Happy Place just tops it. I now understand the hype behind Emily Henry. We had a 4.5, and the worst book was a 3 stars, which isn't even bad. And then we had another 4.5 and a 5 stars. So it's safe to say that this was definitely a success. I'm so glad that I can finally join the Emily Henry fan club. Happy Place was literally the best book to end this on. I love that we ended on a very positive note. I don't know, I'm so happy. I'm in my happy place right now because of these books. Emily Henry took me to my happy place. But yeah, there you go. These are the 4 Emily Henry books that I read today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for watching me read Emily Henry for the first time. Thank you for sticking with me through this journey, through this roller coaster of a journey. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys on the next one.